with Tanya Lloyd, a Democratic candidate for Texas District 27. She is running for the Congressional Federal District. And we're going to learn a little bit about her today, her candidacy. We're going to cover a wide range of topics. She's going to tell us all about them. Of course, the way this is going to work is I'm going to ask my questions. I'll probably give you a quick description of myself. And then we'll go ahead and get into the questions. And then afterwards, we can maybe have a Q&A. So, Tanya, first off, pleasure to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for joining us. And also, I just wanted to let you know that, we've been trying to get this going. Took us a little bit of time to get the interview, but I think that's great. For the record, I'm not like some big, huge podcaster. I'm not Joe Rogan or,
Thank goodness.
Yeah, I know. Or Brian Taylor Cohen or anything like that. Mm-hmm. So what I'm mainly saying that for the audience is that this is just kind of an average guy asking everyday questions that I think the average American should know. And with that being said, why don't you go ahead and tell us about yourself and your campaign?
Okay. So my name is Tanya Lloyd, and I am a kindergarten teacher and a wife and a mom. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people ask me, why did you decide to run for office? And basically because I was mad. The things that were happening in our country and the way teachers were being treated and the way women were being treated in the country just really turned a corner for me and made me decide to, I say, get up off my couch, right? Mm-hmm. And do something besides vote and call my legislator, because that wasn't working. And so the next step was to run for office. So Here I am running for office.
That's great.
Yeah.
Great. So what about your, kind of tell us a little bit more about your background. Obviously, you've had a life before politics.
Yes.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about like your family background and like the city you grew up in and all that? I think our audience would like to know.
Yeah. So I grew up in small town Texas. If anybody are familiar with Lockhart, that's pretty much where I spent most of my life. We moved there when I was 8. My dad was a football coach and a high school teacher. He taught high school math, coached football and track. And my mom was a small business owner. We grew up in a very red town. My parents and the rest of my family are Republicans. Mm-hmm. So I grew up thinking I was Republican too. And as I started teaching public school, I've been teaching for 20 years in a Title I district. The school that I graduated high school from is actually where I teach in the same district. So I was watching my family struggle every day, putting food on the table, putting a roof over their head, and I just couldn't help but think, like the rhetoric that I was hearing at home, oh, they just need to get a better job, or they need to not be lazy, or they need to pull themselves up by their bootstraps, wasn't working for me anymore, because I saw how hard these families were working, and they're working multiple jobs, and I thought that's not where we need to be. We need to be helping them instead of hurting them. So that's really when my views started to change. I think my views were always there, but when I really started to disagree with the politics of my family and those people around me. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you may have already explained this, but I kind of want you to go a little bit more into detail, because obviously many people like you were very mad with the results of the last election. Right. And, they themselves may have decided to run for Congress, and you stated that you were mad. So what other feelings caused you to want to run for Congress, and why did you ultimately decide to choose, I'll kind of add on to that, why did you choose the federal level to run?
Great question. So during the first, with all of the Supreme Court appointments that Trump had, began the fall of Roe v. Wade. Okay. So that's really when I started getting this feeling of our rights were being taken away as women, to not be able to make those choices, to have an abortion if we needed one to save our life, or, heaven forbid you were a young, 12, 13, 14-year-old that was pregnant that doesn't need to be a mom, right? And those choices were being taken away. And so the choice, that was really kind of what got me, because our current congressman is 100% pro-life, no exceptions.
Okay.
And I don't know if you've heard my story that I talk about my daughter.
I read it on
Yeah.
the campaign site.
So just so that you guys know out there, sorry, the cedar's killing me. My daughter was born at 30 weeks, and she was a 3-pound, 6-ounce baby. But the reason she was born at 30 weeks is because I had something called HELP syndrome, which is actually caused by the pregnancy and only cured when you're not pregnant. And so HELP stands for hypertension, elevated liver enzymes, and low platelets.
Okay.
That is not a great combination. I went into the hospital the second time after being on bed rest for about a month, just shy of 30 weeks, and my blood pressure was 215 over 180. If you know anything about blood pressure, those are not good numbers. They're stroke level numbers. So my doctor was like, you're going straight to the hospital, which is next door. You're not going to stop at Sonic and get a soda. You're going straight to the hospital, and they'll be at the door with the wheelchair for you. I was like, okay. Come to find out, my blood platelets that day were 176,000, which is the very, very low end of normal. Low normal is 175,000.
Okay.
So by Monday morning, my platelets were at 103,000. So the importance of that is below 100,000, your blood doesn't clot.
Okay.
So we had to have an emergency C-section that day because he was afraid that I would bleed out if we didn't have a C-section like right then and there. And by the next day, my platelets were 75,000. And so I came very close to losing my life with my daughter. She was a healthy 3-pound, 6-ounce baby. She didn't have any issues. She just needed to grow a little bit, but I was very sick. And so thinking about my story and knowing that HELP syndrome can strike anytime during a pregnancy, I couldn't help but think what would happen to me if I was 15 weeks pregnant in Texas right now with a 6-week abortion ban, and my platelets 103,000.
Yeah.
And the only way to stop the platelets from falling would literally to be have an abortion.
Okay.
And that's really what, with our current congressman being pro-life with no exceptions, in the situation that I was in, and knowing other women that were in really tough situations, I thought we needed somebody at the federal level to help not only bring back Roe v. Wade, but to codify it so that it can't be taken away anymore as a right. It's really sad that when, as women, we don't have the same rights across the United States.
Yeah.
Because New Mexico, it's different, and other states, they have different rights than we do in Texas. And so I think that needs to be a across the board. That should not be a states' rights issue, because women live in every state.
Right.
So that's really, and the federal position, because I can't afford to be a state legislature.
Okay.
They get paid next to nothing.
Makes sense.
And I like my house and I want to keep it. So I have to be able to pay the mortgage. So that's why. And also at the state level, I don't know that I'd be able to make the difference in that particular issue
Okay.
that I would be able at the federal level. So.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that's really important for people to understand is that this is a job, right? And so you want to be able to sustain your family, not have to pick up a second job. So I think that totally makes sense, and that's fair.
Yeah.
I think for those of you who are watching, I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys now, if you guys are interested.
Move my water out from
If you
side.
guys are interested in voting for Tanya Lloyd for Congress, she is running for District 27 in Texas. And if you're here, we are in the midst of early voting for our primaries, which goes from the 17th of February to the 27th, with the general election starting on March 3rd. She is running against who is your opponent? Let's go ahead and cover
for
that.
the primary or for
For the primary.
So I have two opponents in the primary. Both of them are men that are in their 70s, And neither one of them actually live in the district. One of them lives in District 22 and one of them lives in District 19. I'm not sure why they chose this district to run in, to be honest with you. But neither one of them, I believe, are really, I think they're nice people.
Right.
Nothing, but I think that I feel like I'm the best fit for this seat and what people are looking for in a congresswoman. And it's about what young people are looking for in a congresswoman. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So just keep in mind that the general election in Texas is on March 3rd, and you can still do the early voting. So vote for Tanya Lloyd. And by the way, you can go down to our description section. You will be able to see a way that you can donate to her campaign if you so choose. Why don't you go ahead and tell our listeners a little bit about the funding, how that works, and what they can do to help you? I know it's kind of a tough topic, but we might as well talk about it.
I'll talk about it. So I cannot afford to self-fund a campaign because I teach school. My husband's a teacher as well. So money is not something that we have in excess of. So I've had to raise money to run this campaign. I can say that we hit the six-figure mark about a month ago. So we've raised just over $100,000.
Congratulations.
Thank you. That being said, I've spent a lot of money. Signs are expensive. Literature is expensive. I've run a lot of Facebook, Instagram ads that are fundraisers. That's how I was able to raise that amount of money, was through Instagram and Facebook fundraising ads. But they also are kind of expensive. But the reason we did it, knowing the cost behind it, is because the exposure.
Right.
We were able to, because I had money in the bank and we were running these ads, now I've been able to target 100,000 voters in the district with Facebook ads.
Wow.
And Instagram ads. And right now we've hit about 46% of those have seen my ads 3 to 5 times. Okay. So around 46,000 voters in the district have seen that. Most of my money comes from like the ads, like I said, or I sit on the phone at night and call people, random people, and ask for money. I say, my name is Tanya. I'm running for Congress. I think we can flip the seat. Can you send me $50? And that's tough. I hate it.
Right.
Because I was raised in a household, we didn't have money growing up. And we were raised to not ever ask for things because it was not polite to ask for things. And so that's been really a hard thing for me to do. But I've had to kind of change my frame of mind, I guess, a little bit, to be like, you're helping yourself by donating money.
Right.
Because if we can flip this seat, then we can affect change in a way that we haven't been able to before.
Right.
So fundraising is tough. And my general election competitor, I do expect to get through the primary. But for the general election, Michael Cloud probably has $300,000 in the bank right now. And he does like to take money from large corporations, oil and gas, kind of things. So I'm just grassroots. I'm that's raising money.
Right.
It's tough.
So just to kind of reiterate, you're not taking PAC money, big corporations. Nobody's funding your campaign except just average citizens.
Right. So there are some good PACs out there. They're not but so there's corporate PACs.
Right.
And then there's PACs like the Texas Majority PAC, who is working with the Texas Democratic Party, and they did donate $1,500 to my campaign to help pay for my filing fee.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because the filing fee for this office is just over $3,000 just to file, to run for the seat. So, and there are PACs, like there's one that hasn't donated to my campaign, like they want to see people in STEM in office. And so if they find a doctor or, somebody that's a scientist, then they do donate to those types of campaigns to help get scientists elected into office, because I think we need more scientists in office. And they do too. So there are good PACs out there, but I will not take from corporate PACs.
Okay.
For sure.
Okay. So moving on to some other questions here. So you kind of talked a little bit about the funding portion when it comes to the grassroots,
Right.
but what has it really been like running for Congress? correct me if I'm wrong, but this is your second time,
Right.
correct? You first ran in 2024.
Right.
And running against the same person, correct? And so what has it been both times, from going to town halls, inviting people to certain events, to your many miles of driving? Tell us a little bit about that struggle.
So, never having been in politics, that first campaign was really tough. Because I didn't know anybody. I didn't know people. I have a guy in Lockhart who is very active with the Democratic Party. And he was very instrumental in helping me get started, introducing me to county chairs, because at that point there were 14 counties in the district. Now there's 17. So, just getting out there, and I don't know, where do you go? Where do you go meet people? What do you do? So it was really, I don't think I knew what I was getting into when I signed up to run for the seat. I just knew that I needed to do it.
Right.
And, but it's probably the best thing I've ever done.
Okay.
Besides being a mom, I have learned so much about myself, about what I can do. When I was in college and I took speech, I literally cried giving my speeches in front of my class. And now I can get up in front of a crowd of 1,000 or more and talk, and it doesn't bother me. And I think that's because I have this passion about what I'm doing, and it has to come out, right?
Right.
And I have met lifelong friends doing this, people I never would have met before. I was able to go to the Coast Guard base in Corpus Christi, their fixed wing, and talk to the people that run the Coast Guard.
Right.
And I talked to them about how they get their funding from the federal government. I told them, I said, I'm running for Congress. I want to come visit. And they're like, sure, come on, and was able to sit and visit with them. We went out to an Air Force base in South Texas and took a tour of the Air Force base, talked to, all the different levels. We got to go, there's a pilot training base. And, we got to go up to the air traffic control tower and talk to people up there. We got to talk to people that were packing parachutes. We got to talk to people that were the tailors that made the flight suits for, the pilots, and just learn all about, what base is. What struck me most about touring that base was their issues that they wanted to talk about were kitchen table issues, just like yours and mine. They were worried about the schools on base because it's hot there, and they didn't have shade over their playgrounds. I mean, they're in South Texas, really close to the border, and they didn't have shades on their playground. Their housing is not great on that base. They didn't have a cafeteria. What do they call it on base? That's not a mess hall. Yeah, they didn't have a dining hall because they're mostly officers. They don't have, because it's a pilot training base. And so, those were things that they were talking about, was like, we need a little bit better housing for our officers. We have families here. We have schools. And I thought it was really interesting, because I thought I was going to hear about, we need more airplanes, or we need more, whatever. But no, they really were talking about how far healthcare is away from the base.
Right.
If they have to have specific healthcare. And so that was really interesting. I mean, I've just learned a lot about the district and other parts of Texas, and what people are really worried about.
Right.
So that's what it's been like.
Okay. Gotcha. And roughly how many miles do you think you've driven? I know you probably can't keep track,
I know
but
exactly how many.
okay. Well, why don't you tell us?
So I had I don't even know what year my Dodge Journey was, but it had 190,000 miles on it. And every time I would take it to the oil change, the guys would be like, this is still running? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, well, these don't usually last more than 100,000 miles. I'm like, okay. So knowing that I was going to run this race, knowing that it was 14 counties from Caldwell County, where Lockhart is, all the way down in Oasis County to Corpus Christi, I knew I was going to put a ton of miles on the car.
Right.
And it's a lot of in between nowhere, between here and Corpus Christi, depending on where we're going, right? And our daughter was on her college track team, and all of those track meets were in Oklahoma or New Mexico or West Texas. So I knew that we were going to be driving. So I bought a new car in January of 24, and I have almost 55,000 miles on my car.
Wow.
And that's the majority of it is campaign miles with some track meets thrown in here and there. So 55,000 miles is about what I've been. So,
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's a lot of travel, to be
Yeah.
honest. You know, I mean, if I were to be honest, I think in a year I probably get maybe 20,000 miles. But I mean, you're talking within a couple months here already,
Yeah.
right?
yeah.
You know, that's just a lot. I can see why people might get campaign buses instead. You know.
So I mean, it is 2 years. So 55,000 miles in 2 years. 'Cause
Okay.
we bought it in January of 24. So,
Right. Okay.
But still, that's a lot of miles.
It is. It is. So, with that being said, getting more specific to the district, what do you think is the number one issue facing Texans in District 27?
I think that's going to depend on who we talk to and where in the district we are. If we go down to Corpus Christi, they are very concerned about a couple of different things. One of them is fresh water. They get all of their water from Choke Canyon and Lake Corpus Christi. And those two bodies of water are at their lowest levels ever in recorded history. And I think they're at like 12 to 15% full. They are in desperate need of water. They don't know where their water is going to come from. So they've talked about desalination plants down there. If you're not familiar with what that is, that's basically taking seawater and taking the salt out of it and creating fresh water. But the desal plants down there have not passed because they were wanting to put the brine into the estuaries on the bay, which would kill the estuaries,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Because it needs to be a certain mix of salt and fresh water for the flora and fauna to thrive down there. So they are talking right now about another desal plant, but they're wanting them to take that brine way out into the Gulf to dump it so that it's not disturbing the ecosystem there along the coast. So they're very worried about freshwater and pollution because they've got a lot of oil and gas industry, right? If I go down to Wharton County, we're talking to rice farmers, they're worried about water as well. Because they're not getting water down from the Colorado River like they used to, because they're in the Colorado River Basin. And if we move on up in the district, we're talking to cattle farmers, water. Grazing, there's no grass, they're having to feed. We move over into like Hayes County, Bastrop County, Caldwell County, they're talking about data centers, AI data centers, water. So I can tell you right now, water is a huge issue in the district. But alongside that, healthcare, healthcare, and lack of accessible, affordable healthcare. So yeah.
All right. So I'm sure we'll have some follow-up questions probably from the audience on that one. And we definitely will get into more on the healthcare later on in the interview. But what have your experiences been with the incumbent, Michael Cloud?
0.
Okay.
Yeah. Last cycle, we would invite him to do a debate. I was like, oh yeah, I'll do a debate. He would not, just kind of blew us off. And, he was actually in town. We were having a big forum. The Caldwell County Chamber of Commerce had a big candidate forum. So it was like all the way up to, congressional seats. And both sides were invited, Democrat, Republican, and he didn't show. But he was actually in town the day before for a big fundraiser. So he could, because he only lives 2 hours from Lockhart. So he could have been there if he wanted to. We were in Victoria 3 weeks ago now, I think, at a League of Women Voters forum, also bipartisan. So both sides were there, and he had said he was going to be there, and he sent a staff. I've never actually been with him. I have emailed him as a constituent. Emailed, called his office. There is zero reply. I mean, maybe 6 months later, you'll get a canned email that says, thank you for sharing our Texas values. And, nothing about what, we called to I don't want to say complain about, but express concern about.
Right.
So that's been my experience with the incumbent, Michael Cloud.
Well, I got a little bit of something to say about that, if you don't mind. First off, I can definitely attest to your experience with the no answer. I myself, as a constituent, have reached out to him, and for the most part, it's usually a no answer or a canned answer, and it's usually by email.
Yeah. And months later.
And months later, yes, and much after your issue is either forgotten or subsided, and
Right.
you've maybe even, because quite frankly, I was actually going to other congressional districts trying to talk to other congressmen, and I think that was a bit of an issue for me. As far as my opinion of Michael Cloud, and you can feel free to state that for the record if you wish.
Yeah.
But my personal opinion of Michael Cloud is that he pretty much is a suck up to Trump. He pretty much has gloated about his agenda has been in line with Trump, and that he is quote unquote ranked as like the number 2 Trump supporter within the legislature. And I think honestly that really just says it all. It doesn't say he serves us, it says that he serves Trump. That's my opinion. Is there anything that you would like to say more about that?
I mean, I will agree with you on that. I do know that he left his job in Congress to go stand with Trump when he was being tried on felony charges in New York. He was one of the ones that went and stood in the courtroom with him in support, right? So, and he does like to post on his social media, those things about, I'm Trump's number 2 guy. And, to me, that's not serving the public. And that was another reason I decided to run for this particular seat. Because my husband and I both noticed that the constituent services were not great. And I'll tell you one quick story. There was a young man that went to Bastrop High School. So Bastrop High School was not in the district at that point, but the young man lived in the district. He lived in District 27, but went to Bastrop High School.
Right.
And he wanted to go to the academy. I don't remember which one, Air Force, Army, whatever, military academy.
Right.
And you have to get your congressman or congresswoman to write you a letter that says you can go, right? The recommendation. And so this young man called his office and was like, I would like to get this from Congressman Cloud. And they said, well, what high school do you go to? And he said, Bastrop High School. He goes, well, you're not in our district. And he said, but I live in the district. Like my house is in the district. Just because I go to this high school doesn't mean I'm not in district. And they would not take the time to look up his address. They just turned him down. And he was not able to get that letter to be able to get into the military academy that he wanted to. So that really changed the course of his life, because he had to do something completely different than what he really should have been able to do.
Right.
So that's my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for your opinion. And I'm not going to cover that question because you already answered it. Are you a religious person, and how do you feel about religion?
I have gone to church in the past. I grew up going to church with one of my best friends, and learned a lot. I learned a lot about how to love my neighbor, and how Jesus, served people, and how Jesus loved people. So I would consider myself religious in that aspect. But I'm going to have to throw a but in there.
Okay.
We went to church for a very long time, and we went to Sunday school. But kind of when COVID came along, things kind of fell apart, and people weren't going to church. And that's kind of when I saw a lot of the Christian nationalism come up, where people were really disparaging, let's say, the LGBTQ communities, or really disparaging immigrants coming into the country, or it just seemed like Christianity swung this really direction of me first, and not serving your neighbor. And that really hurt me as a person. Like, I really started questioning my faith. But then I had to look at myself and go, that's not my faith. My faith is what Jesus taught me, that we love our neighbors and we help people, we feed the widow, we feed the poor, and we welcome everybody to our table. And so that's where I'm at about religion. But also, you have your own religion, and that doesn't bother me. I don't know anything about where you stand on that,
Right.
but I have friends of all different religions, and especially running this congressional race, I've met even more people. And I respect anybody's religion. That's they have their own gods, they have their own beliefs, they have their own way to whatever they call it, heaven, or whatever. They have their path and we have ours. And I think we need to respect that, because they have every right to believe the way that they were brought up. So that's where I stand.
Okay. Well, you did ask me. I'll go ahead and just kind of give you my
I keep
position.
knocking the table over.
That's okay. I'll go ahead and give you my position once again, as I'm not running for office, but as a constituent of yours potentially. I am a strict constitutionalist, and some of the questions I am going to ask you will have to do with that, because I am sincerely curious about your answer. But because of that, I believe in the First Amendment. I believe that there is no one religion that should be in this country. And as far as my raising, my upbringing, it was mostly in the Christian faith. I went to a private school, all the way from early middle school to high school. I graduated in high school, and then went on to college in a secular university, if that's what you want to call it. But for me, as far as being a religious person, I would say I believe that there is a God. I do believe that there are certain portions of the Bible that are actually very good to follow. So I think the biblical principles are pretty good. But then again, I'm sure I am not well read in other religions. I'm sure that you could say the same of others.
Right.
I think what's kind of interesting, though, and I'm kind of getting off topic here, but I do want to bring this up, and I want you can give your opinion or you don't have to. They're actually proposing on the Republican ticket right now a proposition or amendment to the Constitution banning Sharia law. I don't know if you heard about this. I think me personally.
Sorry, I'm laughing over here.
It's okay. I think me personally hearing that, once I read that, the automatic thing that I thought was a violation of the First Amendment. Basically, that's what they're doing. So, do you care to comment on that?
I don't mind. So if you really look up Sharia law, it's basically the tenets of what the Muslim faith lives by. And I've read them. They're amazing. They're beautiful tenets. Okay. What the Republican Party is portraying as Sharia law is men riding around the back of pickup trucks with AK-47s and disparaging women and making them wear hijab and, stoning women for, that's what they're portraying Sharia law as. Because in extreme what do you call it? Portions of the Muslim religion, just like in Christianity, there's extremes, right wing, and they do practice some of those things. But Muslims in Texas that I have met do not do that. And I have never met a single Muslim in Texas that believes in what the Republicans are putting out there. It's a fear tactic on the Republican side. I have a very, very good friend down in Corpus Christi that invited me down to go to a mosque with him and his family. And so we went, and it was a beautiful service. It was different than what I'm used to, but it was beautiful. And they invited us to come to go to eat dinner when they had like a family dinner. Of course, the women eat in one room and the men eat in the other. You know, it's like very separate.
Right.
But that's okay. That's how they do. And even in the mosque, the women sit in a separate section of the mosque than the men do. And so we had dinner, and I sat with all these amazing women, very highly intelligent, you know, and just chatted and got to know them. And then was prayer time. We have a quick prayer after the meal if you want to come in. I was like, that's fine. So they got me a little headscarf, and they're like, you don't have to wear it, you know. And I said, no, I'm going to be respectful. You know, I'll wear it because that's, you know, being respectful of their religion. And so I went in there, and they did their little prayer time. And then my friend came over and brought me over to the men's side and gave me the microphone and asked me to speak about my race. Okay. And I don't know that I've ever been really more honored than I was in that moment.
Okay.
Because that is a huge thing, to be invited into a space like that to talk about what you're doing. And I was able to take questions from them, both men and women, about why I was running and how I felt about certain things. And that was really a neat thing to be able to do. So this whole Sharia law, however you want to say it, is a scare tactic. Yeah.
Well, thank you for commenting on that. Now, kind of getting more into the federal, the federal job that you're applying for. What are your thoughts?
The longest application I've ever done.
What are your thoughts on the current administration? You can comment on the cabinet, the president, any high-level official.
It's a hot mess. I mean, that's a polite way to put it, is a hot mess. I'm at a loss for words a lot of times when I think about this cabinet and the president and what they're doing and what they're not doing. It's frustrating to watch. It's frustrating. I've only heard bits and pieces of the State of the Union. I don't want to watch the entire thing because I would just be so frustrated. I walked in the house the other night, and I had been to a rally with Jasmine Crockett, and I walked in the house, and my husband was yelling at the TV because he was watching the State of the Union, you know. But the fact that we sent, as a country, taxpayers sent Kash Patel to Italy to party in the locker room with the men's hockey team on the taxpayer dime. Not impressed with that. The way that our Kristi Noem is rounding up innocent civilians of this country, frankly, that are here legally. They may not be citizens, but they may be on asylum or a green card or a work visa or a student visa. They're here legally, and they're being, you know, yanked off the streets and put in these prisons, for lack of a better term. And it's just disheartening, you know, to see what these high-level cabinet members are doing. And don't even get me started on RFK and his vaccine views. It's just so frustrating, and I think we feel helpless a lot of times because we don't have the numbers in the House and the Senate to really make any changes right now. And there's not enough Republicans up there with the spine to stand up to what's going on.
Okay. Well, I think I'll go ahead and give you my opinion as well, since I think, you know, it's good to have the dialogue and just to know where we're both coming from. I agree with you. It's 100% a hot mess, and I will go a step further and say that essentially we have a domestic terrorist in the White House. That is, you can agree or disagree, but my opinion is that we have a domestic terrorist in the White House. We have a person who essentially is trying to push to be an authoritarian, who from his first presidency has essentially broken the law in one way, shape, or form. And it's
not every law, but a lot of laws.
A lot of laws, but it's a disgrace.
Right.
And I just, someone who's a veteran, I'm upset.
Yeah.
And it hurts to kind of admit all that. But that's my feeling. If you were elected to Congress today, so you win the election in November. You get elected and you get sent there. What is the first thing you would want to address, and what solution would you propose?
So when I first started running this race in 24, that answer would have been to reinstate Roe v. Wade.
Okay.
That would have been my answer in the 24 election.
Okay.
Since then, we've had so many things happen that need to be fixed beyond that. We need to address, first of all, the crimes that have been committed out of the White House and the cabinet. The people that have committed those crimes need to be held accountable in a way that if they go to jail, they go to jail. We need to address what's happening with the Epstein files. The people that have been covered up for need to go to prison. I don't care who they are. I don't care if they're Democrat, Republican. If they were guilty of harming young men and women, no, young boys and girls. They're not men and women if they're under 18.
Right.
Boys and girls, they need to go to prison. I don't care who they are or what side of the aisle they are on. So those are the kind of things right away that would need to be addressed. But on the other side, we've had health care ripped away from so many people. We've had SNAP benefits ripped away from so many people. We've had jobs ripped away from so many people because of the Doge. And so we really need to reinstate a lot of the things that have been torn down. We need to rebuild the Department of Education. We need to, put those things back in place because we have American citizens that are suffering financially, emotionally, and, because they've had those safety nets taken away. And so those are things that would need to, that's a long list. There's a lot of things that need to be fixed, but that's where we would start.
Okay. I definitely think that is something that I think in this area, especially, you talked about the healthcare situation. So I think that's a good place to start for just the general welfare. Obviously, medical care has been a major issue ever since I've been able to vote, and I'm sure since you've been able to vote, it's been an issue too. So I think that's a great option. And I think you said you wanted to codify Roe v. Wade, basically. That was kind of one of the things you wanted to do. Okay. All right. Kind of getting away from the politics stuff, just to kind of, tell people a little bit more about you. Like, what hobbies do you have?
I love to read.
Okay.
Reading is one of my favorite things. I read pretty much anything. Love historical fiction. I love fiction. Kind of like some romance novels here and there. When I get home at night, I am tired and I don't want to think about something. So I just lose myself in a book a lot of times. I also love to cook. I cook all different kinds of things. I make homemade pretty much everything. I bought me a wheat mill a few years ago.
Okay.
And so now I grind my own flour to make my own bread, make my own pasta. We cook pretty much, when I say from scratch, we cook from scratch. We're an ingredient household, right? I love to hang out with my family. They're very important to me. I love to, if we go places, the beach down in Port Aransas, the jetties is my favorite place to sit. Watching the dolphins, watching the ships come in, watching the people, they're kite surfing and whatever they do, fishing. That's really my soul has a connection to water.
Okay.
Right? And when every now and again I'll wake up on a weekend and I'll ask my husband, what's on your plate for today? And he's like, he's learned now to say, we're going to Port Aransas, right? Because that's when, if I've had a really rough week, that's where I want to be, is sitting by the water. So no really crazy hobbies, but I like to can. I make all my own pickles and I put up tomatoes every summer. I make all my own jelly. Okay. That kind of thing. I like to can.
Okay, I thought you were gonna say like you like to do some type of dance or something like that.
Yeah, no, canning in the kitchen.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's pretty cool. So since one of the things you mentioned is that one of your other Democratic candidates that you're running against is not from this district. He's actually from up north. You know a little bit more about this district than he does. So what would you say is probably the best place to get food in District 27.
What kind of food are you looking for?
What would be your favorite?
Um, I like food. I mean, I'm partial to my barbecue in Lockhart. I
Okay.
cannot lie. I'm partial to my barbecue in Lockhart. And anytime we travel outside of the county, people go, let's go get barbecue. And I'm like, no, because I'm always disappointed, right?
Oh, okay.
Because it's just not Lockhart barbecue. There's a place in McMahon, Texas called Wizardville Hall that's got some amazing pizza.
Okay.
Yeah, if you haven't been to McMahon and Wizardville Hall, you got to check out their pizza. There's great places up and down. There's a great Italian place in Cuero, which is not in the district anymore, but it used to be. There's just really great places all over. We found a Cajun restaurant in Victoria the other day. My daughter and I did, and had some really good red beans and rice and chicken and sausage gumbo and beignets for dessert. So yeah, there's a lot of good food in the district.
All right. and are there any people that you would like to give a shout out to that own those businesses you really like?
Well, Kent Black owns Black's Barbecue here. Well, there's two Black's Barbecue. There's Kent Black and there's Terry Black.
Okay.
They don't get along. They're family, but
There.
one's a Republican, one's a Democrat.
Which one's the Republican? Which one's the Democrat?
Kent Black is a Democrat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He's a great guy. He does a lot for the community. I really love Chisholm Trail Barbecue. That's my favorite. And one of the guys that I went to, it used to be owned by a guy named Lloyd.
Okay.
And he has since passed away and sold the business to actually one of my high school classmates. And they do a lot for the community as well. They love to have the football team on Friday nights, after the game, pregame meals, things like that. They really try to give back to the community. So, yeah.
Well, for those of you who are in District 27, now you know where to go grab something to eat. So a lot of people in this current election cycle are always looking to help. They want to know a way that they can essentially do their part. And obviously, doing your part is potentially helping you with your campaign. So what do you think is the best way, and could you tell our audience the best way for them to either contribute funds or help out your actual campaign, maybe post yard signs or whatever?
So volunteers is going to be huge in the general election. We do a lot of block walking. If you're not familiar with what that is, basically we have something called VAN in the Democratic Party. It's the Voter Activation Network.
Okay.
And you can look up I pay for it through the Texas Democratic Party, but I can look up any voter in the state of Texas and know how they voted in the primary.
Oh.
Cannot tell how they voted in the general because that's,
Right.
secret information. I guess that's all in that person's head. But when you vote in a primary, you vote Democrat or Republican.
Yeah.
Right.
Choose.
So you choose. So we can look up and see how people voted in the last 20 primaries. Right.
Okay.
And so right now I am targeting primary voters. I'm not targeting Republicans at all.
Got it.
I'm turning out primary voters that I know are going to vote for me.
Right.
That's the name of the game in a primary.
Okay.
This fall, we are going to be doing a lot of block walking, which means I take my literature. We go into VAN. We find people that we think we can persuade
Okay.
that maybe go back and forth between a Democrat and Republican primary, kind of back and forth. Those people that are more independent, but there's no independent primary, right? So we find those people that we think we can persuade, and we go knock on doors, or we phone call and invite them out to meet and greets, things like that. So those are very important things that we're going to have people do. We do a lot of phone banking. Hey, election's coming up. Don't forget to vote. Early voting starts this day, ends this day, that kind of thing. I think I might have a guy out of Hays County that's going to be my sign guy for the entire district. it's 17 counties, so he's going to need some help. Right now, I have signs in all 17 counties, but I have mostly like the party chairs are helping get those out. They found volunteers, but it's really hard to get signs out at all the polling locations, making sure that all the laws are met, because you can't put them so, they have to be so many feet from the polling location, and they can't be in the right of way, and they can't, So I think I've got a volunteer that's going to head up the entire district for the general election in the fall, but he's going to need some help, with that. He's got a post driver and a post puller, because we do a lot of T-post. Those are fun if you know what a T-post driver is. So, getting those signs out, but also like block walking, phone banking, volunteer organization, just like somebody that could say, okay, we're going to do a block walk this weekend, this weekend, this weekend. Tanya does not have time to organize you. I'm going to organize these things because Tanya's out talking to voters, or Tanya's on the phone asking for money, right? So I need people that will volunteer to help gather and organize other volunteers. And all of that can be done through my website. There's a little form you can fill out to volunteer. There's also you can click to donate through through ActBlue. And there's an address where you can mail a check if you don't feel comfortable donating online. So that's all there online.
And for those of you who want to donate online, we have her website down in our description section. Just go on down there and contribute however much you think you can at this time. So obviously we kind of talked about what you think are the major issues when it comes to District 27.
Right.
What have you heard, anything else other than the two things that potential constituents of yours have said are issues in this district?
So besides water and healthcare,
Yes.
education.
Okay.
Right now in Texas, our public schools are floundering because of lack of funding. The state has just, cut us off at the knees with lack of funding over the last 20 years, really. It's really sad when I have to buy my own pencils or extra. The kids bring supplies at the beginning of the year, but we ran out of glue sticks, or their pencil boxes break, or just things happen, or I need stuff for a science experiment, and I end up buying a lot. I usually spend between $1,000 to $1,500 out of my pocket every year for classroom supplies. And that's not just me, that's teachers across the state of Texas. And so public education, also higher education, the cost of higher education is really important to young people. They are stuck with tremendous amount of student debt that they don't know how they're going to pay. Right now, the job market is horrible. And I've talked to a lot of young people that have graduated or getting ready to graduate that are not able to find jobs really at all, or they're just very, part-time jobs making nominal money, just not enough to live on their own. Young people are very worried about ever being able to own a home, ever being able to have a family, ever being able to retire, to be able to afford to save money, because they can't save money right now.
Right.
I mean, every penny they have goes to rent or insurance or student loan payments. So affordability is a really, really big thing with young people right now. A lot of young people are talking about democracy right now. They're very worried about our country, just like we've talked about earlier. They don't see a very bright future. And, they're very disappointed with some of our leadership at the highest levels that have been there a really long time. And just are kind of there hanging out and not really fighting for what people need. So they want to see a lot of changes in that form. There's just so many issues. Lack of access to healthcare. We have a lot of healthcare deserts in this district. And if you're not familiar with what a healthcare desert is, it's just if you need to go to the hospital in Caldwell County, you go to Luling, which is a tiny little hospital, but they do not deliver babies there.
Okay.
And if you have anything major at all, they're going to put you in a chopper and send you, to Austin or San Marcos, Kyle area.
Right.
If even Bastrop County, as big as their hospital is, they do not have a labor and delivery unit. So bringing accessible, affordable health care back into these communities where women don't have to drive 2 hours to see an obstetrician,
Yeah.
deliver a baby, or if they have a major accident, they're having to be flown from their small town hospital to a major hub. So health, just access to health care is a huge thing. So.
Okay. And we'll probably get a little bit more into affordability and all that. One thing I will say definitely is you mentioned younger people not being able to afford a home or first-time buyers just not being able to afford one. One thing I've noticed, especially in this area, is, for example, when I first bought land back in 2015, you were maybe paying up to $9,000 to $10,000 per acre, and now people are asking almost 10 times that.
Right.
Like you're looking at $100,000 an acre, sometimes 50,000.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is expensive out there, and sometimes people do wonder how is it going to be possible. So I'm glad you're willing to focus on that. So thank you very much. So, and I think this next question is a little bit difficult because I don't think a whole lot of people really address it. They kind of just want to address the party's concerns or the constituent concerns. But ultimately, one of the biggest things I feel personally, and this is my opinion, that candidates need to understand is that how things get done in a republic, in our constitutional republic, is usually with compromise.
Right.
And so with that being said, I'd like to ask you, how do you plan to reach across the aisle with people who don't agree with you and work for their needs as well?
So I think really we all have the same needs. We're all we all live in the same boat. We're in this great big boat, I think, that's sinking. And, we do have, I think the problem right now is the Democrats have compromised for so long and the Republicans have not. They've not given anything up because they haven't had to, because they have the majority in the House and the majority in the Senate. So they haven't had to, the Republicans haven't had to compromise. And the Democrats have had to give up way too much. So that's going to be hard for me to say I'm going to go in there and compromise, because I'm going to go in there and really fight for what normal everyday people need. And, I hope to be able to bring my perspective as a teacher, a normal everyday person that also worries about the car payment and the house payment and the insurance, and is there enough money left at the end of the month to, do the things that we need to do. Because so many people that are in Congress right now don't have that problem.
Okay.
And I don't think they see the dire situation that people are in. And I really hope to bring that perspective to Congress and to help maybe change some minds about investing in people. Because when we invest in people, when I say invest in people, I'm talking about if we had universal health care, it would be way cheaper in the long run, because we have healthier people. They actually get to the doctor. So they miss less work, right?
Yeah.
So they're more productive in the workplace. This is how investing in people looks like. When we invest in things like universal daycare or universal pre-K, we're allowing people to get back into the workforce,
Okay.
right? And those programs actually have a quite high return into the economy. But when we invest in big business and we expect trickle down, we do not have that same impact on lower income people. The wealthy people get great benefits from it, but normal people don't.
Right.
And so I want to be able to share that perspective and those facts, because the facts are out there. It's been researched. You know, the return on that money is researched.
Right.
And I want to be able to go to Congress and say, look, this is where we are. And we're losing our workforce. We're losing our health, not health care. We're losing our health. And if you want a healthy economy, if you want an educated populace, this is what we're going to have to do. So yes, I'm going to have to compromise some, but also I want to bring a different perspective.
Okay. And just some quick questions. They're kind of yes or no, really. So this is, you have never held any political office before this?
I have not.
Okay.
No.
Okay. All right. And then I think that's great that you brought that up about like investing in daycare and things like that, daycare programs. I think what's kind of interesting, and this is me kind of expressing my opinion, but when I read over things like the Big Beautiful Bill, they said, well, we're going to, continue the Trump tax cuts of, $2,000 per child and $5,000 for every new baby that's born. I just kind of want to say to that, have you seen the price of daycare?
Yes.
Like that doesn't even cover essentially a full year. That covers maybe a couple months.
Maybe.
Yeah. And that's kind of, that's kind of sad. And I would say that, just having been in a family that for the last 10 years has had two working people, daycare is needed. It's just a requirement. I mean, it is, how do you expect people in this day and age to essentially get to the next level and acquire the American dream without it? It back in the 1950s, yes, you could live off of one income, but that's just not the case anymore. And I think we need to accept that as the reality, but we are kind of fighting ourselves.
Right.
And so I agree with you. But I think that is something that needs to be addressed. I think one of the major issues that we have talked about also is we've talked mainly about marginalized groups. And that has to do with, anybody that I think, in my opinion, has been affected by the Trump administration. We can point back to history of what that could be. But I think specifically we're talking about the Hispanics, we're talking about women, we're talking about the LGBTQ community. What is it that you want to do? We talked about Roe v. Wade, but what are you going to do for those other marginalized groups? What would you do to help them?
So, there's so many thoughts in my head.
Just one at a time.
Yeah, just one at a time. The LGBTQ community, I think we have got to recognize science.
Okay.
We have to recognize science. We have to recognize that people are born differently. We are not all the same. I'm going to bring in a Bible verse here.
Go ahead.
The Bible talks about creation, and God created day and night and everything in between.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And he created the land animals and the water animals and everything in between. And so I believe people are the same way. He created a man and he created a woman and everything in between. And I think we really need to look at things in a different perspective. And, I tell my kindergartners every day, because they fight like cats and dogs sometimes, that we don't have to like everybody, but we have to respect everybody. And I think that's a huge thing, respect.
Right.
We've talked a lot about the trans community in the last few years, how, it's being shoved down our throats, or how bad it is, or how, against, whatever. And that just drives me up a wall, because, there's such a small portion of our overall population. They're not the ones that are causing inflation. They're not the ones that are, paying minimum wage when they're making billions of dollars in profits for a corporation. you know, and they're being used as scapegoats to distract the population from what's really going on, which is the government's taking our money left and right.
Right.
You know, the reality is, you know, they've talked a lot about keeping boys out of girls' sports and men out of women's sports. The reality of that is, you know, my daughter was an NCAA athlete. She was a college athlete. And they have rules. You can't just all decide to be, oh, I'm gonna go compete in the women's hammer throw because now I've decided that I'm a woman.
Yeah.
That's not how that works. You know, you have to have transitioned for so many years. You have to have taken hormone therapy for so many years. You can't have, like, they test for estrogen levels and not steroid levels. What is it? What I'm thinking of? Men's hormone, like testosterone. So they test for those. And if you're a trans athlete and your testosterone level is too high, you don't compete. Right? That's the bottom line.
Kind of like a weight class.
Kind of like a weight class,
Yeah,
right?
in
I mean,
wrestling.
so they have to fit certain parameters. You know, you can't just say all of a sudden I'm going to go compete in these sports. That's not how that works. And I think there are 10 trans athletes in all of the NCAA across the United States. There's 10. We're not being inundated with this, and that's what the Republican Party makes it seem like, is like it's just being taken over. And so for those communities, we need to, number one, recognize science. Number two, we can't blame them for everything that's happening in our country, and we need to make sure that our laws reflect that.
Okay.
You know, when we're talking about equal access and equal opportunity, the right to marry, the right to have all those financial, legal paperwork to take care of as a family, you know, so you can go into the hospital and see your spouse, you know, those kind of things. We need to make sure that all of that is the same for every single person,
Right.
no matter their age, their color, their race, their gender identity. I don't care.
Okay.
It should be equal across the board, and we need to make sure that that happens.
Okay. I think I've got a couple follow-up questions for that, so if you'll just bear with me. I think that's interesting that you brought that up because you said a few things that I don't know, and I think it's just I don't know because I probably haven't looked into it. So when you hear Donald Trump or anybody in the Republican Party say they're getting transgender surgery at schools, and you being a school teacher. Yeah, I mean, why don't you explain, I would like you to explain to our audience kind of, and your potential constituents, what is the reality on the ground? Because you're going to have to convince those people too.
So in Texas, you have to have permission for your child to see the nurse. You have to sign a form for a child to see the nurse. That's if they need a Band-Aid, or if they have a bloody nose, or if they scrape their knee at recess, or they fall off the equipment and bump their head. You have to have signed a permission slip, basically, for your child to see the nurse. That's a new law in the state of Texas that took effect in September. So if you don't sign that, then the nurse has to call the parent every single time they come into the nurse's office. And it doesn't matter what it's for. You know, it doesn't matter if it's, you know, I cut my finger with my scissors, or I fell off the playscape, or I have a bloody nose, or my head hurts, or my tummy hurts. Like, the parents have to be called every single time. Even before that law took effect, number one, we don't have surgery suites in any of the schools in Texas. That's just not a thing. Our nurses can barely give an aspirin or, you know, anything like that. Nothing is administered to a child without a parent's permission. And any prescription drugs have to have doctor's notes. They have to have, you know, very detailed information with it. Like if a kid needs an inhaler at school, you know, say they have asthma, there's a whole process to go through for that child to even have that at school, or an EpiPen for allergies or anything like that. I mean, it is documented, and it is every time that child comes into the nurse, it's documented they did their inhaler. It's documented that they took their medication that they have to take during the middle of the day for whatever, if it's ADHD or if it's antibiotics, if they've been on, if they've been sick and they have to have it in the middle of the day. Those are all documented. There's nobody performing surgeries at school. I promise you, we don't have money for that kind of thing. Our nurses are not even the only nurses that are RNs in the district are the ones at the high school and the junior high level. Our elementary school nurses are the next level below RNs.
Okay.
So yeah, there's that.
All right. Kind of getting away from that, and this could be a yes or no, or this could be a huge debate. We don't know. Do you support impeachment? So let me word it this way. Would you commit to, since you're running for the legislature, the House of Representatives, and you have the power of impeachment, do you commit to impeachment?
Yes.
Okay. We'll say that for the record.
Yes, I would commit to impeachment for the president, the sitting president.
Correct. Okay. Sorry, I should have probably clarified that.
No, that's okay.
Okay. Now, kind of going on to foreign policy, because that is something that I haven't really heard you talk about. I didn't see really discuss it on your site. What is your stance on foreign policy, and who do you think is our biggest adversary right now?
Our biggest adversary is sitting in the White House. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. This is your...
That's I believe that we need to have a strong presence in the world. As that speak softly, carry a big stick, kind of thing. We have built such a rapport with our allies across the country, across the world, and I think that's necessary. We need to make friends. We need to be friendly with people around us. We are not an isolated nation. We cannot run our country without oil from other countries. There's different kinds of oil, and people are like, well, we're pumping our own oil. Yes, but you get sweet crude from here and this kind of crude from there, and it's all used to make different kinds of things. So we don't, we trade for those kind of things. We can't grow all of our own coffee. Hawaii cannot supply all the coffee we need in the United States. We need to make sure we have trade partners for things that we can't get. And, so foreign policy, I think it's very, very important. If we look at Ukraine right now, I think we should support Ukraine because, Putin is just really trying to take over that country for his own good. And they don't want to be a part of Russia. And, he has, tried to invade and take over, saying, I'm just going to stop here. But we all know that's not where it's going to stop, right? If he is able to take that over, I believe, then it'll be the next step in the next country. And we just need to make sure that a stop is put to that. And, we need to support people that are trying to gain their independence and be their own, country. So, foreign policy is not really my forte. Right. For instance, I have a lot of opinions about it. Okay. I have a lot of thoughts about things. This whole thing about going to war with Iran. Is it Iran? Iraq? No, Iran. Yeah. I don't support it at all. Right. I don't see any need for it. I didn't see any need for what happened in Venezuela. The whole bombing of the drug boats, killing all those people without any due process or any knowledge that they were actually running drugs, was really kind of heartbreaking for me to see that our country was committing murder, basically on the high seas. Like our navies become pirates. So I have a lot of opinions on things. I know that there are a lot of things that I don't know. And that's okay, because I've always been of the mindset, if I don't know something, I can always learn.
Correct.
And I can find somebody that does know that I can learn from. Right. So, I think, when we took away the USAID, that hurt our foreign policy. Right. We were building trust with other countries, building water wells and, doing those kind of things, and propping up some of these really poor third world countries. And because we were able to do that and have that trust with them, and we've backed away from that, other countries now are stepping in and taking our place. And China is one of them. Stepping up, and now they're creating that bond, they're creating that trust and support. And so I think those are things we really need to look at when we're looking at foreign policy. Is, yes, we're spending money on a water well in a third world country, or yes, we're spending money on education in a third world country, but what that we also gain from that, whether it's a trade partner, whether it's we're just making sure they're friendlies and allies versus instead of adversaries. So
Yeah, I would actually like to talk at length about this. I know you've expressed your opinion. I would like to talk about this just because, for one, I have been on the sphere of foreign policy on the ground personally, having been a veteran, and then two, I would also like to say something about, since you said something about money and the USAID going to other countries, and kind of there's this misconception out there that basically we're just wasting money, and that's why people are saying we need to leave certain areas or not support them. So first off, the thing is I do agree with you. I think our biggest adversary is Trump.
yeah,
I think we got to take care of that, number one, before we focus on anything else. If I were to say outside of that, I think, to be honest with you, it's China at this point, mainly for the sheer fact that, one, China hasn't really been engaged in a major conflict. They say that they're building up against Taiwan and constantly do the saber rattling. North Korea is kind of there, but to be honest with you, they're on a leash by both China and Russia. So it's kind of hard to say. Having been on the peninsula myself, I can definitely attest to the fact that the South Koreans, depending on how they see us now, they're pretty much prepared. They do need some capabilities that we can give. However, their forces are very well prepared for something like that. I think to an extent NATO is something that we have to maintain. If we didn't maintain it, and I think essentially we pretty much alienated ourselves from NATO. Just, if nothing else, at least from the talking table. Now maybe like on paper we're still part of them, but with the things that have been said, I think it's almost caused some irreparable damage, and it's going to take time.
It's going to take time to repair. I think there's been a lot of damage done with our allies. So I was just saying, I think there's been a lot of damage done with our allies, and it's going to take a lot to build that trust back up. I mean, if we look at Canada and the tariffs and the back and forths, and it's those trade partners, they're important. They're important, and we need to make sure we maintain that trust and that friendship with other countries.
No, I completely agree with you. So kind of shifting away from foreign policy, and I know that you may not have the ability to choose this. What committees? Because obviously in Congress, you can go to Judicial Committee or the Oversight Committee. What committees do you want to be on if you had the choice?
If I had the choice, probably education and agriculture would be my two big ones. Because my husband and I both teach. Education is very near and dear to us, and my dad was a teacher, my grandmother was a teacher. Like, we come from a family of education, and I believe that education is probably the single most important thing that you can do for yourself. It's not the be all end all. A lot of people are very successful without formal education, but those people are also educated in their own right. They may not be formally educated, but they've gained that through internships or studying underneath somebody or studying on their own, whatever it may be, right? Education is important. And the other, when I said agriculture, my husband grew up on a dairy farm. So he grew up in the agriculture industry, and he has a degree in agricultural economics. And, this district has a lot of agriculture. We have anywhere from like rice farming down in the southern part of the district. We have row crop farms, cotton, sorghum, wheat. We have, and I'm sure there's more than that. We have small farmers that grow vegetables for farmers markets. We have beef, cattle, sheep, goats. Down the coast, we're talking shrimpers. And, I could just go on and on about agriculture, and then we have, our orchards and pecans. And there's so much. And the average age of a farmer right now is 60. And what's going to happen in 10 years, right? Because people can't afford to farm anymore. Have you priced a John Deere tractor lately? Any equipment for, cotton, trying to pick the, what are they? I can't think of the name of the machine that picks the cotton, but, those things are well over $100,000. And, we need to make sure that our farmers can farm because we've got to eat.
Yeah, let me kind of say something about that. We had talked off camera a little bit about kind of like my experience in agriculture. And one of the things that I was really upset with this current administration was we went to apply for a loan through USDA. And because USDA had gotten all those cuts, we weren't able to get it. So, I would just like to see those come back.
Yeah.
I think that would partially fix part of the problem. Obviously, it's not a 100% solution, but the fact that it was taken away was a big problem.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So, obviously, kind of in this last election, obviously, other than the fact that we elected a certain president for a certain reason, one of the things that he's been tackling supposedly has been fiscal responsibility. We could talk all day about how that has gone and how we may disagree with it. However, how do you personally plan to ensure that our country is fiscally responsible and ensure that taxes, and I think this is what's more important, is how are taxes going to be made fair for all Americans? What would you like to see?
So we're taxing the wrong people the wrong amounts. And I think that's just the easiest way to put that. If we look at companies like Walmart, they're not paying percentage-wise the same amount of taxes that we pay percentage-wise. So I don't know what their tax rate is, 1%, 5%, whatever it is. Mine's like 25%, whatever. So percentage-wise, everyday Americans are paying a larger portion of their salary than big corporations. And a lot of big corporations are double dipping. And when I say that, I mean things like, we're going to drag Walmart back into this. They pay their people so poorly that they qualify for Medicare and Medicaid, depending on the age, because there's a lot of elderly people that work for Walmart.
Yes.
A lot of them qualify for SNAP benefits. And because Walmart doesn't pay, the federal government does. Right?
Yeah.
And so Walmart needs to pay a living wage. And then the federal government wouldn't have to supplement. So basically, the federal government is supplementing these big businesses that are allowing their workers to qualify for SNAP. Right? Or for Medicare and Medicaid for their children. They're able to do that, and it's wrong on a lot of levels. Corporations need to pay their fair share, and we have enough money in the U.S. Through corporations that they could still be billionaires. Even paying a much higher tax rate, right? And that would benefit so many people. So it's just a matter of how we tax people and who we tax and how we spend that tax money.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, I think I have a couple of things to say about this. I think personally, just telling you a personal story of mine, my wife and I work a job, W-2 employees.
Right.
Part of the reason why you work another job is to hopefully build more income, build more wealth. Traditionally, that's kind of just the American way at this point. Not everybody does investments. Not everybody has the ability to do so.
Right.
So you have to rely on that income, and unfortunately, obviously, everything's a little more expensive. Now, that being said, what I have really noticed is that we can work twice as hard but be taxed 4 times as much.
Right. Yeah.
And
the more money you make,
the
the more
more-
more you pay in tax.
Up until a certain amount, and then you get up to
Right.
$100 million or something like that. Some obscene amount, and they can give you like really great tax breaks.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you're creating jobs.
Right, you're creating jobs.
Creating jobs.
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, the mom and pop business creates a job,
Absolutely.
and they don't get that tax break,
No, they
or
don't.
something like that.
They don't.
In fact, they go out of business because of things that the
Right.
breaks that the corporations are given. So, and I can say that from our business, that was definitely a problem. I can tell you just with the way the economy went, business was either good or bad. And,
Yeah.
our taxes, depending on that year,
Right.
we may have been able to take a loss. We may have not, depending on what
Right.
the IRS said.
Right.
So, but then again, we can't pay for those accountants, with that being said. But I agree with you. I think taxes need to change. I think the tax code needs to change. We originally, and I don't want to get on my soapbox here too much, but I would like to discuss it. We didn't have a federal income tax, graduated income tax, until the 1900s after the Gilded Age. When we had the robber barons and all that, and that was part of the reason why we did. But then that kind of got away from us, and I think it does need reform. I think it does need to be fair. So I think I agree with you. I think we're taxing. I think you could say, is it fair to say that we are taxing people, we're just not taxing them fairly?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, okay, I agree with you. How would you address the healthcare crisis in our country, and what would you like to do to help District 27 with healthcare?
So one of the problems we have in District 27 is we have a lot of rural community, which means rural hospitals. But there are counties out there that don't have a hospital, and you're driving an hour, 45 minutes, 45 minutes to an hour, hour and a half to get to a hospital. Our doctors in our small towns are overloaded, and they are not making bank. They're not, just getting rich off of this, right? They make probably decent money, but they're also very, very busy, and they don't have time to give the quality of care that I'm sure that they would like. And they're tied up with insurance companies, and their hands are tied in a lot of different ways. And that's a whole nother story. I would like to see, first off, this is a multi-step process to fix this. There's not one thing that's going to fix this crisis. We need to graduate more doctors.
Okay.
We don't have enough doctors. So that means we need more teaching hospitals.
Okay.
We need to make, right now, only the elite, the rich, can afford to go to medical school. So we need to make sure that our best and our brightest, no matter what income bracket they are in, can afford to go to school to be a doctor if that's what they choose to do. And we need to make sure they have internships after they graduate. What is that? When they do their rotations and all of that, because they don't all get that. When you graduate, you don't automatically get a spot working in a hospital to do those rotations.
Right.
So everybody that graduates with the right grade, GPA or whatever, should have that ability to get in to work. In the meantime, we also need to work on more PAs, those physician's assistants. They're going to be vital, I think, in this next step because we can graduate them a lot quicker. And a lot of these PAs are amazing, and they can do almost as much as a doctor can. And so when we're in a small town setting and somebody comes in with a cold or, the flu or stomach bug or whatever, they may not necessarily need to see a doctor. A PA is going to be just as good. They can write the prescriptions. They can do, all those things. If PA may not be the right term, but I think that's what it is.
Yes, it is.
And, I would like to see clinics open, small clinics across the district. We may not be able to open a full-fledged hospital to be able to afford that. But if we were able to open more clinics that were 24-hour clinics or almost 24 hours where people could get in quickly. I know one of the big problems is, and my mom talks about this all the time, is, well, I call the doctor when I'm sick. It's 3 weeks before I can get an appointment, and then I'm not sick anymore. Kind of thing. Or it's so bad that I've had to go to the ER because, I can't get into the doctor. So we need to make that healthcare more accessible. And we're going to do that by opening more clinics, right? There's a model that I saw in San Marcos, actually, I thought was really kind of neat, is a clinic/ER. So if you go in, they kind of triage you. And if you're clinic, you go over here, like if you got the stomach bug or, it's the weekend and you can't get into your doctor, but you need an antibiotic, you kind of go this direction. But if you come in with a major injury, something like that, a broken arm, broken leg, they triage you and you kind of go to the ER part of it. Right. And I think that's kind of a smart model that we could have in smaller towns that would be more affordable, and it's not the hospital, but it's where you can get taken care of, kind of two different settings. So opening up more clinics like that, funding those and making sure we have doctors in them. One of the things I would like to see is when our kids graduate, I call them kids because I'm old. They're not kids when they graduate from medical school, but when they graduate, that maybe if they have a ton of medical debt, that medical school debt, is that they could go to work in a small town and work off some of that debt. If you work 5 years, 10 years, 8 years, then you are working off your medical school debt because you're giving back to small town USA. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be Texas, but anywhere, right? Because I know this is kind of funny comparison, but we only had one vet school in the state of Texas for the longest time, and now we have two because Texas Tech just opened a vet school a few years ago. One of the reasons they opened that was because there's not enough large animal vets in the state of Texas anymore because we don't have enough vet schools to get kids in and out. And so one of the things they did, especially rural towns, our veterinarians are getting older and older, and nobody's coming to replace them in these small towns. So one of the things that Texas Tech is doing is like, okay, you come into this program, you're going to be a large animal vet, and you're going to go work in small town Texas. Let's do that with people doctors and not just animal doctors, right? So kind of work off of that model.
Okay. Yeah. I think I'm just gonna give you a little bit of recommendation on this, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
Just because my wife is in the medical field and all that. And I think what you mentioned, first off, you did mention that if you work in a small town or rural area that really does need assistance medically, you can work off that debt or they'll assist you. I remember for a time, correct me if I'm wrong, that federally that there was the ability to do that, and then it was taken away.
I don't know for sure.
Okay.
I can't answer that question.
Okay, fair enough. I think there was that, but that was one of the reasons why we moved to a rural area. So I think definitely that is a good idea. If you could reinstate that, that would be awesome.
Or expand.
Or expand it, or expand it.
If it still exists, it needs to be expanded.
Yeah, it doesn't exist anymore,
Okay.
and that's why I bring it up is because it did, and that was one of the reasons why we moved to a rural area. And then once we lost that, it was kind of like, well, why did we really do it? And then with that being said, another thing that my wife, I know that she's going to kill me for bringing this up, but one of the things that my wife constantly brings up is exactly as you say. She's a nurse prac. She can do the exact same thing a doctor can. She can write prescriptions, make diagnoses, all this, but the state of Texas hampers them.
Right.
And hampers them in the aspect of they have to have oversight from a practicing physician.
Right.
Do you think that there is a way that we could change that, and would you commit to changing that?
That's a question I don't know the answer to.
Okay.
And I'll always be honest if I don't know the answer.
We want you
But I would say that is something that intrigues me. Definitely do some legwork into that to figure out what could be done. So
I think that's a fair answer. But yeah, no, I think that would be a good thing for you to possibly think about. Okay, this one's near and dear to my heart.
Okay.
I hope you're ready. Do you know who Doug Collins is?
No.
Okay, that's okay. Doug Collins is the current VA secretary.
Okay. I should know that, but I don't.
That's okay. I'm just giving you a heads up. He is the current VA secretary. I don't know if he's a Trump appointee, but he is certainly supported by Trump. I don't know if you know this, and I don't know if other veterans have talked to you about this, but one of the things that Doug Collins recently did was he decided within the last week, I want to say, because it took effect February 17th. One of the things that they decided to enact on February 17th of this year, and it got such an uproar within the veteran community, is that basically they said that they were going to start taking veterans off a certain, giving the impression or the ability for the VA to reduce a veteran's disability if they took medication that made their condition better. Now,
Bits and pieces.
okay, now let me kind of elaborate on that. That's essentially like telling somebody you are taking mental health meds because you have anxiety, depression, or are suicidal, and the medicine makes you better, but you're 50% receiving the 50% rate at the VA. They can essentially say, you're better, we're going to reduce you down to 0 and just give you meds. The worst, at worst, what I've seen that equivocated to is like essentially telling an amputee, here's a spare leg. Yeah. You no longer need the disability. We won't pay you anymore. Right. It's received a very large uproar within the veteran disabled community, so much so that the man actually decided to not enforce the policy, which I will say is a good thing, and he made that decision within 2 days of saying he would. Okay. So good on the veterans for waking up. However, the problem I have is that order has not been rescinded, which in my view means it can be enacted at any point in time. Would you, one, commit to potentially asking him to rescind that order? And also, would you commit to potentially impeaching Doug Collins for violating the Supreme Court?
So I would commit to making sure that order is rescinded because I believe firmly in our veterans. My dad was a veteran. He was a Marine Corps. I don't know about impeachment. I don't know you can impeach a cabinet member or whatever, the head or whatever that is. So that's something I would also have to look into. I mean, certainly if firing him, letting him go, whatever that looks like, that's something that would be, yes. If he's not taking care of our veterans, then we need to find somebody that will. Okay. And whatever that looks like is what I would commit to.
Okay.
So.
So I'll let you know that you would have the power to. Okay. Since the House has the impeachment power. Okay. So you can impeach pretty much any official. Okay. That includes cabinet members appointed by the president. Okay. And the Senate is the only one that has the ability to do convictions. Okay. So just to let you know, that is your power. that is just something that a lot of veterans, not just me, I'm sure if you talk to other veterans in the community who have heard about this particular situation, will tell you the same thing.
Yeah.
But thank you for at least stating your opinion on that. Now we're going to get a little bit more into kind of the, I don't want to say confrontational, but it's going to be kind of debatable, if you will. There is no right or wrong answer, obviously, and we've been open about our opinions so far. So I think I kind of want to bring this up just more for the sheer fact of I think there is sort of a false belief out there that one party's evil over the other. And I think both parties do it to an extent. But specifically, since you're on the Democrat side, I'm going to frame it this way. A lot of Republicans paint the picture that Democrats are communists, anti-American, or otherwise.
Right.
What would you say to those people about your stances and your party?
So I have always 100% been a proud American. I consider myself a patriot. I love this country. That's why I'm running for office, because I love this country. I don't I don't know how they get that Democrats are communist. I don't understand where that's coming from. I know that they frame. I've been called all kinds of things as a Democrat in this office. Oh, she's a baby killer. She wants to kill the babies because I believe that abortion is a right. That doesn't mean I want to kill babies. That's not what that's about. That's a whole deep conversation. It's, I guess sometimes the right looks at us and says you want to give all of our money away, and that's what they perceive as being, I guess, communist or socialist or, whatever you want to call it. I call it investing in people, right? Because right now we're going completely the other direction where we're looking at oligarchs and, tyranny on the other end and taking all the power away from the people. So, what I would say to them is just, I've always been a proud American. I am a proud American. Right now, I'm kind of like,
Right.
Yeah. But here again, I feel like we have to step in and save our country. And I proudly fly that flag. I stand up every day and say the pledge with my kids in kindergarten. And my dad was in the Marine Corps. He firmly believed in this country, and I do too. And we have a lot of flaws. Right. I'm not going to lie. As a country, we have flaws. But I think sometimes that the right frames us like that as a distraction for taking our money behind our back, kind of thing. Like, it's just a distraction. It's to keep people fighting, because people are patriots. We love this country. And, if somebody says, oh, Tanya's a Democrat, she's got to hate this country,
Right.
then people are going to hate me because I'm a Democrat, because I hate this country.
Right.
So they're not going to frame it in a way that makes me look good, because they don't want me to look good.
Exactly.
Right? So all I can say is no. Like, I serve my country every day as a school teacher. I do the work every day. I have worked on all kinds of committees within my community, different clubs, FFA Booster Club, Athletic Booster Club, Aggie Moms, Sunday school teacher, been there and done that. And I think that's what we do as patriotic Americans, is help other people. So I hope that answered your question.
No, I think, sorry. I think it does. And it just has to do with rhetoric.
Right.
We're constantly flooded with the news, whether, if you have an iPhone, it gets flooded to you, Trump said this horrible thing about Democrats, in the State of the Union address, he said we were crazy.
Right.
So it's a lot of rhetoric, and it's just like, I think, if you paint it as the aspect of you're coming at this, even if you're affiliated with a party, you still love the country.
Right.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, and I think that answers the question. I think that would be a great answer to anybody who thinks otherwise. Okay, and this is the reason why I'm going to ask this next question is mainly because both the frustrations that you have expressed with Michael Cloud and my frustration. If you are elected, how will you hold yourself accountable to your constituents?
So first of all, I would hold regular town halls. I know I'm going to be spending a lot of time in Washington, and that's because that's my job.
Right.
I would have the ability to have regional offices. So I think he's got one in Corpus Christi and one in Victoria. I don't know if I would keep them in those places because the district's changed a bit. I want to make sure that people can get to them pretty in a reasonable time frame, right? If they're driving to an office, if they need to drive into an office, because the district is 3 hours from one end to the other. So, we got to, kind of figure out where those would be. I would want those offices staffed all the time. I would want emails to be answered promptly. And it may be, I don't agree with you on your topic, but let's sit down and figure it out, whether it's with me or a staffer, or let's work through it, because I want to hear from the people in the district, and I want to hear what's working, what's not working. Our current congressman has not held a single town hall in his entire time in office. He holds meet and greets at 8:30 in the morning in the middle of the week for like-minded people. So he does not meet with everyday people. I plan to have a constituent service person that is in charge of making sure that all these things are done, because I would be able to hire staff and, have really strict ground rules about phone calls, emails, those kind of things that need to be answered, and whether I answer them personally or my staffer knows my stance, or my staffer can respond to that in a timely manner, because there are 775,000 people in a district. I get it. And there's one of me, but I would do my very level best to make sure that I was accessible to the constituents in the district, because that's the whole reason I'm running for this seat, is to make sure that we have that communication. And I think the other thing that people don't really realize can happen is the work between a congressman and the county commissioners. And in some places, they have really close relationships. And those county commissioners, help bring budget money in through the federal government, through their congressmen and women.
Okay.
Right, through grants, or through, the Infrastructure Act, the bill that Biden put through. And so working with local government would be something that I want to implement, to make sure that the funds are flowing to where they need to be, right? And knowing what the local government needs from the federal government.
Okay. Yeah, I think you holding town halls would be a good idea. I have yet to see, as you said, Michael Cloud hold one. So, and all the time it's posted on his Facebook, hey, I spoke to these people, but when did you ever put that out? Agree. I think this next question really deals with the process of how you would make it easier, and maybe you've already answered this. And if I'll ask the question, and if you think you've given your answer, just tell me, and we'll move on. But many people complain about how hard it is to get a hold of their congressional representative. How do you plan to make that process easier so your constituents' voices can be heard?
Yeah. I think I kind of answered that a little bit, by having more than one office in the district, depending on the budget that I'm given, how I can do that, but making sure those offices are always staffed with somebody there that can answer the phone, just making sure that I'm accessible and that those messages get to me.
Okay.
And so that I know what the concerns of the district are.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that answer. Okay, the next one, this is kind of a biggie, especially since you live out in the country, and I have to ask it. because you are going to, if you want to win over some people, you're going to have to answer it. So I'll just be direct on the first one, and it's, are you pro Second Amendment?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Yes, and let me explain that.
Okay.
Yes, I'm a Democrat. Yes, I own guns.
Okay.
Right. I have my little gun safe at home with my guns put away. When I say no, I think we need to have much. I don't know if stricter gun laws is the right word, but if you drive a car, you need to get a license. You need to take a class, and you learn to drive that car. And you learn how to make it safe, and you need to carry insurance on it just in case something happens. If you buy a boat and drive a boat, you have to take a class to learn to prove that you know how to drive that boat, right? You have to get a license to drive that boat. You have to have insurance on that boat. But you can walk into a gun store at the age of 18, pass a background check. If you're 18 years old, you don't have a background, because if you do have a background, it's sealed.
Right.
And buy pretty much whatever you want. And open carry has no license in Texas. Am I correct?
Yes, they changed that law, I think, back in 2018.
Right? I would advocate for, before you can purchase a gun, that you must take classes.
Okay.
And educational. What is this weapon used for? What does it look like when things go wrong? People need to understand what that is for. And I would even advocate for carrying, if you are dead set on having an AK-47 or an AR-15 or any high-powered rifle that can shoot more rounds in a minute than you can count, right? Insurance on that. You're going to carry insurance on it.
Okay, what do you mean?
Because if something like liability insurance.
Okay, liability.
Like if if you crash your car and it's not and it's your fault, you have to pay for the other person's car. Your insurance pays for that. So if your kid takes your gun, or it's whatever, like if there's, or you personally, like there's some liability involved in that, because right now it's like, maybe there is, maybe there isn't. So, that's something to explore, is to look at some really making sure that we have that responsibility and being responsible gun owners, making sure our children know we've got guns in the home, and making sure that your children understand what they are. I grew up with guns in the home, and we were very well aware that those were not to be touched. That was, we were not afraid of them, but we were respectful, right? And we knew how to shoot. We knew how to do all the things. But in today's day, I think we just need to be really a lot more conservative, maybe is the right word, with who can. We need to look at red flag laws in a way that they haven't been in a while, and to protect people. So,
okay.
I'm sorry, that was a lot, probably.
No, that's fine. I think you kind of answered the second one, because it's, do you think it should be limited, or do you believe it is non-negotiable? The reason why I asked that question is you'll run into two kinds of people typically.
Right.
You're going to run into what we call Second Amendment absolutists, non-negotiable, can't do a thing, can't touch it, enshrined in the Constitution, don't do anything with it. And then you're going to run into people who are like, well, we could have more background checks, we could have tests, or we could have red flag laws, things like that. So I think, but there was one thing that you said in there that I would like you to clarify a little bit. You said you don't think we need more laws, we just need more qualifications. Yeah. So, in other words...
Which might actually end up being a law, but qualifications.
Right, but so I guess what I'm saying is, at this point in time, and I know it's kind of hard to say, would you enact any legislation at this point? would you be for any certain types of legislation, or are you saying that it's it's something that maybe should be left to the local county or maybe even the state itself?
I think there may be some legislation that needs to be written around. A lot of this is states' rights kind of stuff.
Okay.
And from state to state, it's different.
Right.
You can't carry a firearm across state lines. You can't, like the certain things. And, I think we do need to look at, some of the things that have been, firearm registries, that there may be some legislation in there, and I really need to do a little bit more research in there and see what legislation exists and exactly how it's written, before I say what kind of legislation. I need to know exactly what's written and how it's being enforced.
Okay. So before we kind of get into, because I would like to have this conversation with you.
Yeah.
It's just something we all talk about.
Yeah.
So with that being said, we talked about your position on the Second Amendment as well as what you would do with it, either legislation or otherwise. So with that being said, given the fact that not all your constituents are going to agree with that,
Right.
what compromises are you willing to make to constituents who specifically might be Second Amendment absolutists?
That's a really tough question. And I think there's been some liberties taken with our Second Amendment, absolute. And if you really look at the way it's written, it's the whole well-regulated militia part that's always left out, right? So yes, the Supreme Court has said we have the right to bear arms. I mean, that's kind of been enshrined in our DNA, I think, in the U.S. But because of the violence that we've had and the number of school shootings that we've had, I don't know exactly what that would look like.
Okay.
I'll be honest with you. But being a teacher and having to go to school the day after Uvalde, the day after, I don't know, whatever the name of the high school was out in West Texas. I mean, there's a dozen of them, we could name, right?
Right.
And dealing with, most of my career has been in first grade. And kids that are afraid to come to school because they see this on the news. And we have to do active shooter drills in kindergarten. And we have to, teach them where to go and where to hide and what windows to stay away from. That gives me really pause, right? That we need to really look at that. Is the Second Amendment right important? Yes. Is it more important to be able to own any firearm you want than a child's life?
Okay.
So those are some tough questions that people need to ask themselves. Is my right to own anything I want to own more important than a child's life? So.
Well, appreciate your honesty on that one. I just want to talk about it.
Yeah, sure.
I'll give you my position since I've kind of heard yours, and this may be one of the first places where you and I might disagree, but that's just politics.
Yeah.
So the reason why I asked that question is because I'm kind of one of the absolutists.
Yeah.
I've been around guns my entire life. I went into the military, have been around guns. My children have been educated about gun safety. I think to an extent, I don't know if you know this, and I'm not telling this. I'm telling this to you just more or less out of awareness of the constituency.
Right, for sure.
Is that when people voted for Trump, that a lot of them were single issue voters.
Single issue voters, yes.
Yeah, and that was one of them. And so with what Trump said recently, especially with Alex Preddy, which I do not agree with what happened to him, nor do I agree that the CPB, whatever they did, even if it might have been lawful, whatever, it was still a terrible sign, and they just shouldn't have done it.
Right.
So with that being said, and what Trump said afterward, I think it turned a lot of people off in the Second Amendment community. And I think to an extent that that could be a win for you when it comes to winning those people over.
Right.
I think with you saying that you have firearms, I think is definitely they can identify with that. The fact that you're willing to admit that it is a right enshrined in the Constitution, I think is fair. But I think to an extent it might be you might run into constituencies. Still, it is a single issue.
For sure.
So to an extent, what I would like to see, in my opinion, and to be honest with you, I hate talking about this, but I love talking about it. I hate talking about it because there's more issues in our country than the Second Amendment at this point.
Yes.
I think we have bigger problems on our hands. And for all intents and purposes, and I've been telling this from the very beginning, and people can disagree with me all they want, I don't think Trump is pro 2A. I don't think he ever was. Yeah. And the reason being is, one, exactly what he said after Alex Preddy, and two, he's unilaterally tried to repeal constitutional amendments. We saw that with the 14th, we saw it with the 1st, we saw it with the 4th. So who's to say you can't take away the 2nd? Right. So my point is that I think we got bigger issues right now than that. So I don't think that is the number one issue. Yeah. But I think what I would like
for some people, that's fine.
Yeah, it is.
And I'm never going to sway those people, and that's okay too.
Yes, and that is okay. I guess what I'm really trying to get at is I think it would be nice to see someone of your viewpoint be more on the pro 2A side, meaning not necessarily you have to be an absolutist, but someone that recognizes the right, recognizes the fact that there are some people that are just non-negotiable. Yeah. Go ahead.
You would be surprised at the number of Democrats that own guns. And carry.
Yes.
Because let me tell you, I hang around with a lot of Democrats. And these are discussions that we've had. So I was kind of surprised of some of the people that were like, yeah, I'm packing. Like right now. And I'm like, oh, like, okay. So anyway.
No, I think that is a fair point. I think in the Republican Party, there's an assumption that because certain Democrats don't support it, that Democrats aren't armed or don't believe in it. Right. I think that is a very false and a very dangerous statement. Yes. You could say, and I'll be honest here, I already voted for you. And to be honest with you, when it comes to the general election, I am going to vote for you already. I personally don't like the fact that Castro Mendoza, he's not even from this district. I'd rather vote for someone for it. And like I said, I think there's bigger issues. Right. You and I can disagree on certain things, and we can agree on a lot of things. But one of the things I'm saying that we're mostly agreeing on is that our country's in trouble and we need help. Yeah. And I think you're the best solution. Well, so I will say that. But yeah, I think there is a misconception out there that Democrats just don't carry guns, don't own guns. I think that's wrong. Yeah. So if you're a Republican out there, please understand that everybody has that right, and Democrats exercise it too. Yeah. And if you want to consider me a Democrat because I voted in the Democrat primary, whatever. But I mean, who cares? And I think I've told you this. I'm an independent voter. Right. Yeah, we talked about that. Yeah. I don't identify with either party. I identify whichever party at the point in time agrees with what I agree with. Yeah. So with that being said, we'll move on from that unless there's anything else you want to discuss. Okay. All right. So how do you plan on making education better for children in our K through 12 schools?
We have a lot to work on. Okay. One of the things I've been reading a lot about lately is technology in schools and how it is actually detrimental to students at a very young age. And they're learning to swipe on their phone, or the tablet instead of write or paint or draw. And it actually wires your brain differently than writing does. And not in a good way. A lot of our kids right now, it's instant satisfaction. Like it's, that constant feedback of, they're playing a video game and it's just this constant, they don't have to wait for anything. Right. And we need to change some of that. We need to take I firmly believe we need to take a lot of technology out of school. Technology is an important tool. They need to understand how to work a computer. They need to understand how to do those things. I don't think they need a woman in kindergarten. In kindergarten, I think we need to focus on pencil, paper, and writing.
Oh,
and,
okay. God, I'm sorry, I misunderstood what you said.
Yeah, so I think we need, taken away. We don't need that technology as young as what we have been using it in schools.
Okay.
I think it was a great tool during COVID when we needed to be online for school. And now we're all one-to-one devices pretty much across the country, and every kid uses a device, every day. And I'm just not a proponent of that.
Right.
I think we have in Texas, especially, not invested financially in our students. Our class sizes are too big. We don't have aides in our classroom to help. Our teachers are overworked. I don't have enough hours in the day to get done what I need to get done and do it in such a way that is beneficial all the time for the kids. We need to take away a lot of testing that's happening.
Okay.
We test more than we teach sometimes, I feel like. And testing is important. We need to know where our kids are. We need that. We need that data.
Right.
But right now it's just way too much, and we don't have time to deal with the data before we're testing again to get more data that we don't have time to deal with, right? So we really need to look at really investing in our kids. And that's going to look like putting more money in schools.
Okay.
Whether it's smaller class sizes, meaning more teachers, whether it's more art supplies, whether it's more band equipment, what are the extracurricular, music, whatever that looks like. That's how kids grow. That's how they become well-rounded, is to have lots of different experiences. More field trips, get them out in the world. Let them see what's out there besides Lockhart, Texas, right? We need to expand their worldview, or their county view, depending on where we're at. Education is just really important. There's a lot of things that we can do. But really in the state of Texas, our legislature is who writes our curriculum. The SBOE, the State Board of Education. And you would be surprised at some of the TEKS that are, the TEKS is a Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills that we were supposed to teach, right? We can talk about this all day. Don't even bring my husband in this conversation because he's got a lot of opinions too. But we really, when we say we need to get back to basics, we do need to get back to basics. Wow. And we need to understand that kindergartners and first graders and second graders are children and not robots. And that they need to play and explore and learn with their hands and not sit in a chair all day. Right. So I have a lot of opinions on education.
Oh, that's
but,
great. You're talking to someone who was an educator too. I'm not as old as you,
so,
but
and I've seen it, go from, a pretty good mix of, academics versus, we're going to cut and glue. And color and, all those things are really important for fine motor skills and all that kind of stuff, to heavy academics and no time for the arts. Right. Whether that's cutting and gluing something in the classroom or building something or, that kind of thing. And I think it's detrimental to our kids.
Okay. Yeah, I have to agree with you on the TEKS for sure. I just remember being a junior high teacher, and it was like, you have to learn, the kid has to be proficient in this by this time. And it was almost like, okay, in order for them to be proficient in that one TEK, you have to move from subject to subject almost every day, given the fact that you have 180 days or 187 days to teach. Yeah. And you think as a young teacher, mind you, this is my first year when I taught, and it's like, okay, your idealism is you think you can do it, and then you really get into it. It's like, this is hopeless. This is hard. It's like, how can I, and my job depends on this, really.
Right.
Like, what happened to, us just being teachers,
Yeah.
teaching the curriculum, but kind of like doing it in our own way. And I thought that was the whole premise of teaching.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I agree with you on that one. And is there, to kind of add on to this before I move on, is there any legislation that you would like to see in this district that would improve educational opportunities?
So, as a federal position, they don't affect public schools a lot.
Okay.
Okay, most of that's done through the state.
Okay.
The federal government, the state, I want to say the State Board of Education, but the federal government, Department of Education, their main purpose in public schools is to help fund Title I districts. And Title I means that they qualify for free and reduced lunch. The majority of your kids are low socioeconomic families, struggling families.
Yeah.
And so they do provide extra funds for certain programs. ACE is an after-school program. I don't remember what it stands for, but it's a grant program where kids can go after school to get tutoring for free.
Yeah.
So that's a federal program which helps public schools. They also provide our lunch and breakfast programs through the federal government.
Yeah.
They're not great. They need a lot of work,
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion. If you saw what they eat, like, whatever. It is what it is. We got to fix that too. Also through the federal government for education, it's special education programs, bilingual programs, and making sure that all of those laws are complied with. Because when it comes to, special education, there's a lot of laws that need to be complied with. So there's a lot of that. That's a minor part of what the Department of Education does. Their biggest deal is really student loans, Pell Grants, and higher education.
Okay.
So not a lot I could do for the local level,
Okay.
but one thing that Congress can do, they're not doing, is fund up to 40% of a school's CTE budget. And if you're not familiar with CTE, that's a career technology education. So that's like our trades. And they are not fully funding those. They've chosen not to. I mean, they do fund a percentage of it.
Yeah.
Those are some of our most bang for our buck programs
Yeah.
for our kids in school. And they are the most expensive programs to implement. I mean, if you're looking at auto repair shop, you've got to have the lifts and you've got to have the tools and you got to have, all the things that go with it, and that's expensive. If you are looking at carpentry, same thing. If you're looking at plumbing, same thing. If you're looking at hairdressing, culinary, they're very expensive programs, but they pay off in the end. So that's one thing that I would like to see funded better is the CT programs.
I have honestly never heard that before.
Okay.
The CT program funding.
Yeah.
I think you should go for that. I mean, we always hear about how the trades aren't getting enough attention. I think that's a great idea. Moving on to, we talked a little bit about affordability and how things are getting more expensive. Let me put this into perspective for you. My personal grocery bill has increased double. I went from paying almost $200 every 2 weeks, or excuse me, $200 every week for a family of four to $400 every week.
Right.
And so you're looking at almost $1,600 a month there.
Yeah.
And so how do you plan, and this is a hard question to answer, and I don't expect anyone to be perfect at it, but clearly people are looking for answers on something like this. How would you try to bring those bills down?
So one of the things that I don't know if you've heard of Clayton Tucker. He's running for agriculture commissioner here in Texas.
Yeah, I think we did have.
Yeah, the agriculture commissioner has a lot to do with groceries, right? All the academic things. Agricultural things. Monopolies are a big thing in the food industry. A huge thing. And it's, if you're looking at, we have thousands of farmers that are selling cattle, thousands of farmers. But they all go to the one auction in the county, right? And if our auction's on Thursday and the county next door, theirs is on Wednesday and the other one's on Saturday. If you ever go to these auctions, it's the same buyers, right?
Yep.
They go the same, so they're buying from thousands of farmers, they're going to hundreds of, my brain just shut off. No, feedlots.
Okay, feedlot.
So they're going to feedlots. So these buyers are buying for feedlots. And from the feedlots, they're bought by packers. And there's 4 in the United States. 4 processors for beef. That's a monopoly. They're able to set prices. So our cattle farmers are getting pennies on the dollar for their product that they work really hard to raise and keep alive. And, all the things, we know all about that. To the meat packers that are, they're the ones that are making the money, right?
Yeah.
That's where it's going. So we have to be able to break up those monopolies and bring competition in.
Yes.
And it's not with just beef. It's pork, it's poultry, pretty much everything chicken is Tyson.
Right.
It may be packaged under a different label, but it's all coming through a Tyson plant, right?
Yeah.
And so, breaking up those monopolies is, sorry, somebody pit my,
That's
Yeah.
okay.
um,
I've already had a phone call.
that's all right. So, breaking up those monopolies, it's not going to be easy. I mean, it's not going to bring grocery prices down immediately. Right now, we're in a cattle crisis in Texas anyway. We're at the lowest stock in generations, realistically. So that's going to be a tough one to bring back. But I think allowing, I think we were talking earlier, I buy a steer every couple of years from our 4-H kids. I don't buy beef at the grocery store. But, it's hard when, COVID came along, and this was really interesting. These kids that raise these steers and heifers and whatever for stock shows and lambs and goats and, these pigs and chickens and turkeys, they all go to the processor after they leave Houston or San Antonio. They get on the market truck and they go.
Yeah.
Well, COVID shut all that down. And these kids brought all these animals home because there was no market truck to put them on. And so they were looking for local processors. There's not enough local processors. And it was a year wait.
Oh, wow.
You can't hold a steer
Yeah.
for a year to get them into a processor. You can't hold a pig for a year to get them into a processor. So we need to let that competition open up and allow small processors in these small communities to allow people to raise their own, and make it more affordable on that end.
Yeah.
But also, not everybody wants to do that or can do that.
Of course.
But, when COVID happened, I was like, that was eye-opening as to how few local processors there were. And, so that's one thing. And it's not just in the meat industry. It's all across the food industry.
Yeah.
And, we talked about monopolies or big companies making big bucks. The packages are getting smaller and it's the same price. You're getting less for the same money. Yet these companies are making record profits year after year. And so those are some things that as a Congress we need to look at to figure out how do we fix that.
Yeah.
How do we, if you're making record profits, then you need to be paying your people.
Yeah.
Bottom line, record profits, pay your people.
Yeah. Two things I'll say on that. First is being a sheep and goat farmer, I can definitely attest to just the low prices. It's kind of ridiculous. You try to go to a private sale and then they end up comparing you to the local stockyard, and all you're trying to do is essentially grow more stock. And it may not be a huge money maker, but you're hoping you can at least just make it, right? You may not be the big Tyson plant, but you're just trying to keep your family on your land or whatever, and you got to pay the bill somehow. And it's just, it was frustrating having been a sheep and goat farmer, and it's just the market just tanks
Right.
with those animals,
Right.
you know.
And then, with our farmers, our cattle farmers right now, because of the drought that we're in, they've had to sell off a lot of their stock. And they're not able to buy back. Well, they can't buy back right now because there's no grass. But when we do have grass, they're not going to be able to buy that stock back financially
Yeah.
because they're so high, because they are competing with those buyers that are buying for feedlots.
Yeah.
It's all in the same auction barn. The local farmer and the feedlot buyer are sitting side by side bidding on the same animals.
Yeah, no, it's. I think it's a shame. Definitely eye-opening, and I think we need to. I think breaking up that monopoly would be a good idea. Now, this one, you may say no on any of it, and that's okay. But I'm gonna ask it anyway. Is there anything that you think legislatively at this point in time that is currently good in this country? In other words, what would you not change?
I have to think about that.
We can go back to it.
Yeah, well, okay, so there was one executive order
Uh-huh.
that I really just hated to say that I agreed with
Okay.
President Trump and RFK on, and that was bringing whole milk back into our schools. It's like, because our kids need whole milk, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what helps their brain develop and grow.
Right.
And I was like, oh, I have to agree with him on that. I would have to do some digging to see if there was really anything else that I agreed with or thought was good.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's probably something. I mean, it can't all be bad, but it just seems like it is.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So I think. I'm sorry. I mean, we're going like way over time, but we're getting in depth. I think honestly, we're getting anywhere from 10 to 20 people to 5 watching. So I think it's going great. So I would say personally, the one good thing that we have as far as executive order is probably just the fact that we did something about the border, in my opinion. I think there's many things that I can say that are negative about it, but I think that, to an extent, the last administration, in my opinion, did have some faults in that.
Yeah.
But that's neither here nor there. I think that is something that was good, although I don't think anything after it has been. So that's just my opinion. And since we were talking about affordability, I will ask you, since you've heard about the tariff decision, right? The Supreme Court.
Yes.
How do you feel about the tariffs, and do you think that removing them would actually significantly make things better?
Tariffs are a tax on the American people.
Okay.
That's, economically speaking, that's what a tariff is.
Yeah.
You and I pay the tariff.
Correct.
Because, in a roundabout way, foreign countries do not pay tariffs. That's how that works. Our importers that are buying pay those tariffs, and they pass that increase along to their buyers, which is you and I.
Right.
Those costs have already gone up. We are already paying them. I do not see corporations lowering those prices because they're no longer paying that tariff. They have figured out that we are going to continue to buy that thing, whatever it is, and they're going to continue charging that price. So I don't see that the reversal of that right now without some type of strong arm. Basically, we cut these tariffs by, what if you were paying 10%, 50%, whatever it is, you need to lower your prices. Like, we took the tariff off. You've got to, but then a lot of people will be like, oh, the government's setting our prices for us, so we have to be kind of really careful with that. But I don't see the prices going down with the tariffs being taken away just solely because corporate greed.
Okay, and I think,
Unfortunately.
yeah, I think that is something that people are failing to realize. One, not understanding what a tariff is,
Yeah.
and two, realizing that once the consumer pays the price, the company is not willing to lower.
Right.
In my opinion, I think the only way that truly changes is if we just boycott.
Right.
But
Yeah.
depending on what it is, it's hard to do.
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay. Kind of a controversial question, but it may not be. We talked a lot about marginalized groups. We talked a lot about specific groups that you may have a hard time appealing to. One of the things you might have a hard time appealing to is the male voter. Obviously, and I think this goes without saying, that we kind of have a biased society, more males in charge than females. There isn't.
Patriarchal.
Yeah, it's more patriarchal. We don't really have equilibrium in that sense, for good or bad. But they are in your district. What do you think would make a male voter vote for you?
So far, I have not had a lot of negative reaction from men. Some of them like me, some don't. Whatever. I have to laugh. I have this really curly hair, and it sometimes gets out of control. Some guy posted on one of my videos, I donated money and I go brush your hair. Like, So, I mean, if a man doesn't want a woman in charge, there is nothing that I can do to change their mind.
Okay.
And that's the bottom line. I think I have run into so
Sorry.
many. At least it was empty. I have run into a lot of male voters, a lot of men across the district that believe we need more women in charge. And, they're like, if we put women in charge of the world, we'd be in a whole better place, So I don't really think that's a huge issue. I mean, there are going to be those people that, and my dad was one of them. We lost my dad 2 years ago. Love him. He was a football coach and a Marine, and he ruled his roost, and he thought he knew best. But not everybody's like that, right? He loved me. He was proud of me. He was proud of what I was doing, but he's like, I don't know.
Right.
But especially our younger generations really don't care about who's in charge, as long as they are doing the best for people. And I've talked to a lot of college groups, Texas State, University of Texas, Texas A&M, Corpus Christi, Victoria College. I've talked to a lot of young people, and they don't care. So, and they're going to be the voters that are going to change this election.
Yeah.
So
the first time the people are the first time
yeah,
voters.
and I can't worry about those voters that I'm never going to change their mind. I have to worry about the voters that are persuadable, that are kind of in that middle of the road. I already have the Democrats are going to vote just because I'm a Democrat. But the independents, those that kind of, go back and forth, those are the people. And generally those people are very open-minded because they are already independent. They are already looking for the best person for the job. They're not necessarily, it's got to be this, that, or the other. They're pretty open-minded when it comes to, what they're looking for.
Okay. All right. Are you ready for this bombshell?
Maybe.
Okay.
I like dogs.
Okay. Well, we're not quite there yet. I think that we need to have a female president.
Yeah.
I think that it is far overdue. And I honestly, to be honest with you, and I will disclose it for the record, every every person that's in a legislative position or governor position that I voted for is female. I haven't voted for a single male.
Okay.
And the reason for that is because I truly think that, and are you familiar with George Carlin? Do you know who he is?
Yes.
Okay.
The comedian?
The comedian.
Yeah.
Yes. You know, I don't want to say it on here, but to an extent, he said there's no way a woman would let it get this bad.
Yeah.
And I think there's truth to that, to be honest. And I think it is going to take a woman to really get us out of this, in my opinion. So I have to say that you've at least won this male voter over. So you're good on there. And I mean, you're right. People are going to, some are just going to be sticks in the mud. Yeah. They'll vote party or they'll vote based on their religion or whatever. Right. Is what it is. But I think you're the right person for the job. I would want you in, and I want Jasmine Crockett as senator. Yeah. So I've already voted her in, and Gina Hinojosa is my choice for governor. So is it Hinojosa or Hinojosa? Hinojosa. Okay. Sorry, That's okay. Anyway, but yeah, I voted for Gina. If we want to put it that way. So, and with that being said, well, maybe I'll ask this later. But anyway, that's my bombshell. Okay. Okay. Are you a pet person?
Yes. I used to say I have cows as pets because my daughter raised Brangus cattle for 4-H and FFA, and they were really, literally our pets. We loved those cows. And people would tease me because I would, they're like, show me a picture of your pet. And I would post a picture of, the cows. Yeah. So, but we don't have them anymore. We sold them all this summer because I told my daughter, I said, you've graduated from college. You haven't had a show cow. You haven't been to a show since you graduated from high school, and they're expensive to feed. And, it's time to let loose of the pets. Mm-hmm. We do have 2 Great Pyrenees dogs. Bubba and Levi are their names. And we have a 15-pound long-haired Maine Coon mix for a cat that I just love. His name is Tigger. So
that's cute.
Yeah. So yes, we are pet people.
Great. Okay, back onto the political stuff, and I promise you I only have 2 more questions. Okay. And I hope you've enjoyed this so far. Absolutely. I certainly have. Yeah. Give us your opinion on the Epstein files. And with that being said, do you want to see people held accountable? And if so, how so?
Put them under the jail.
Put them in jail.
Yeah. Not just in the jail, but under the jail. My opinion on the Epstein files is I am dumbfounded at the level of cover-up that has happened. I don't remember if it was the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, or the Pam Bondi, whatever her name is, that said this, was like, something to the effect, if we charged everybody, or if it all came out, the government would crumble, or something to that effect. And I'm like, well, let it crumble, because there are people to step up and take their place. Yeah. It's not like, people like me aren't waiting in the wings to, step up and take those offices. Any person that violates a child in any way, shape, or form has to be held accountable. And I'm not just saying a slap on the wrist. There should be prosecutions and trials and sentences for those people. I don't care who they are. I don't care if it's a Democrat. I don't care if it's Bill Clinton. I don't care if it's Donald Trump. It doesn't matter. If there is proof and there is a conviction, then that's where we are.
I think most people would agree with you on that, regardless of what side. I think that's what a lot of people are angry with, and I think, to be honest with you, I think that caused a lot of people to break with Trump. I have seen a few diehard Trumpers that just won't let it go because they think it's a hoax, but
Right.
To be honest with you, like we've impeached presidents for less.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
haven't convicted them, but we've impeached them for less.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know what's up with that. Okay. What would you do to help women who are pro-choice? In other words, someone who isn't necessarily for the ability to have an abortion. How does Roe v. Wade being overturned, and this may actually be the answer, how does Roe v. Wade being overturned affect women in District 27?
So it's been really hard for a lot of women in the district. Unfortunately, there was a young lady in Luling, Texas, which is just a few miles south of where I live, that died because she was having a miscarriage, and the doctor would not perform a DNC, which is basically an abortion. And she bled out.
Right.
And that's what's happening across the state. And it's not just in District 27, it's across the state. I talked to a young man yesterday whose wife works in a hospital. And we kind of got on the conversation because my daughter was preemie. The lady at the reception desk, her granddaughter was preemie, and his daughter was a premature baby. And, so we were kind of talking about this and my condition that I had. And he's like, my wife works in healthcare. And he said, she comes home way too often with a story of, we had to send a woman home hemorrhaging because we have to figure out how close she is to dying before we can make those decisions to save her life.
Yeah.
And we've had county commission courts try to implement rules that you could not travel through their county with the intention to have an abortion across state lines, which they can't enforce. And how would you even know that somebody was traveling across your district, right?
Yeah.
But just those things that people are thinking about and preventing women, and an abortion is not something that when I was younger I would have chosen because I wanted to have kids and we were in the position to have kids. But I would never deny somebody that option. I've heard way too many stories of very young girls that have gotten pregnant through rape or incest or whatever, having to carry a child. And, if you're 10, 12, 11, whatever, you may not ever be able to carry another child because of the damage it does. Your body's not ready for that. Or if you're not mentally, financially able to take care of a child, why are we forcing women to have a child? That, we have 30,000 children in the state of Texas that are in foster care. So adoption's not the answer, right? Or they would all be adopted. We wouldn't have any kids in foster care. It's just, it's really tough. And unfortunately, the majority of the caregiving often falls on the mom. Especially in situations where it's an out of wedlock baby or it's, something like that. It falls to mom. And that's, she's the one that's going to have to make all the tough decisions, unfortunately. And I would not begrudge a woman for making a choice to not have a child if they felt like, number one, they weren't mentally capable or financially capable of taking our child. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. Now,
Questions.
tough questions.
Yeah.
Really?
A lot of people don't want to hear that.
Okay.
They don't want to hear that.
Just about, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is tough questions overall. You think like,
No.
Okay.
Not for me. I think it's tough for some people to hear the answer that I want to give.
Tough people to hear the answer. Okay. All right. Well, if you'll allow me, I have two more questions I want to ask. And then I will look at the audience Q&A, and I swear we will end this interview so that you can leave at a decent hour, because I know you got stuff to do.
Your wife is over there laughing at you.
Sorry. She's mad. Anyway, that's okay. Anyway, okay, so Now you're going to make me lose my train of thought. Okay. We obviously have a presidential election eventually coming up, right? Who would you like to see run for president?
Right off the top of my head, Pete Buttigieg.
Okay.
Do you know who that is?
I do.
Yeah, he is somebody that I just think is so level-headed and so smart. Like he just, the way he talks and the answers that he gives when he's talking to people, he doesn't get upset. He doesn't get, he just tells it like it is. And yeah, I really like him. So he would be one of the top ones. I would love for there to be a female president, but I'm not quite sure who I would put in that. There's several I have. I'm not going to say their names, but
why not? Just
because I'm just not like really sure where they are on it. If that's something they would even want to be put out into the, air. But it's because I think sometimes, your name gets mentioned and then people are like, oh, well, maybe that person doesn't want to run for office, right? So, yeah, there's some that I have in mind, but I think he's right now my favorite. But there's others.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think I might have the female idea for you. My idea is going to be Elisa Slotkin. She is a senator from Michigan.
Yeah.
I like her.
Melissa Stanbury, have you heard of her? I think it's Melissa Stanbury.
Yes, I have heard of her actually. Yeah, Stansbury. I haven't seen her speak much.
Isn't she the one that spoke after the State of the Union?
No, that was Spanberger.
Maybe I have them wrong.
Spanberger was the North Carolina, something like that, or Virginia.
Yeah.
So, I think Slotkin has a good chance.
Okay.
If we were to go for female,
Yeah.
male, Mark Kelly.
Yeah, I like Mark Kelly too.
Yeah, in my opinion. One, I'm from Arizona.
Yeah.
So his wife Gabby Giffords is kind of part of that.
Right.
And I think he's kind of, without being the Republican, he's kind of the John McCain type.
Yeah.
In my opinion. So that's what I would say. We're going to go ahead and just quickly look at if the audience had anything, and if not, then we'll just end it. Let me read that question here. So, this is somebody obviously who's going to think differently. Will you, and this is my question, not his. It's not my question, it's his. Will you condemn the pattern on the left of eroding women's rights, usurping parental rights, and killing babies? If there's a question in there.
I'm not sure exactly what they're asking. So eroding parental rights in what way?
Yeah.
I'm not really sure. And then there was something about killing babies, which I'm sure he's talking about abortion.
He's asking if you'll condemn that.
I think parents have the right to raise their children the way they want to raise their children.
Okay.
So I'm not sure where he's getting that the left is not allowing people to raise their children the way they want to. I don't know where that's coming from, because I'm all for parental rights and you raising your child and your way of thinking.
I guess what he's saying is condemn it. He wants you to condemn it on camera, but I guess what I'm getting from you is what is there really to condemn?
I don't know. Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. What is he wanting me to condemn?
Okay.
Yeah.
Does he wants you to condemn abortion? And if the answer's
no, the answer is no. I'm not going to condemn abortion.
okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, he has his answer.
Yeah.
Other than that was the only question we had.
All right.
So let me just say some quick closing remarks.
Sure.
Anyway, for all of you watching at home, thank you so much for staying tuned for as long as you have. I appreciate you, Tanya and Lloyd, for being on. First off, good luck in the Texas primary. And I hope that you end up being the front runner personally. For those of you who want to contribute to her campaign, Tanya Lloyd, Texas District 27, if you currently are in this district, or not, you could end up contributing, right?
I have actually had contributions from all 50 states, DC, and Puerto Rico.
Really?
Into this campaign. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So you can donate to her campaign regardless of whether you live here or not. But however, voting for her, you must
You have
be
to
in
be in District 27.
in District
yes.
27. So, all right, get out there and vote. We'll see you next time. Thank you.